still do. We still do. We still do.
Still do after all this time at the altar. I alter my mind and vow to God I love you till he make his return. The rain should be the least of your concern. Under God's umbrella, I promise to provide and preserve his word.
What's going on, Thrivers? Welcome to another episode of We Still Do. We're your host. I'm Jermaine.
I'm Lena.
And whether you're decades in or newlyweds, We Still Do is for you.
That's right. We believe that you can thrive after the altar. And if you are new here, we would love for you to hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of our weekly uploads.
Yes. So let's just start it off. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for
About what?
all that the Lord is doing.
You excited or you just...
The new beginnings, the newness. I'm giggly, I'm giddy, I'm in love, I'm all the things.
Okay. I'm here for it.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little hungry.
Oh yeah, my stomach was growling. Yeah.
I said I'm hungry.
No, but I'm sympathy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Me too.
Sympathy is itty.
Okay.
I don't want you
I'm
to
so sorry you're hungry.
I want you to look.
How are you doing? What else?
In all the ways. I'm doing good.
Okay.
I feel good, feel great. Just super excited just about this new setup. I don't know how many times I'll talk about it, but this new setup, as you guys can see behind us, fire.
Yes.
Shout out to our sister Mia. Yeah, did your thing. You did. You know, shout out to my boy Ricky on the ones and twos. You know, I'm doing good. So I'll let you introduce it because I'm playful right now.
So today we are going to be talking about having a shared vision, and we want to take you back to the beginning when you stood before your partner at the altar and you said, I do, because there was a
Let's break them in. Let's break them in. Okay. Because so many times people want to have a New Year's resolution. They want to talk about shared goals. But when it comes to their marriage and they're setting all these plans, they forget the most important one, which is the vows you make when you say, I do. And so you go ahead. Pick it up for me.
Wow. So as I was saying, when you get married and we're at the altar and we say, I do, most of us, a lot of us have said the traditional vows, or there's an exchange of vows. And what you're declaring really is the beginning of that shared vision, what you both are promising and committing to each other. Then after that, you actually have to live that out, and that becomes the vision of your marriage. And so we want to touch on that today. That shared vision, we want to share about vows, what they mean, where they originated from, some questions that came up for us as we was discussing this episode, and we just hope that it blesses you.
Yeah. And even in thinking about like having a shared vision, what we're talking about is just like, okay, like what does it really mean to have a shared vision for your marriage? And it's like a shared vision for your marriage is I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think so often we complicate it and we think about all the things that we want to do and we think about all the things we want to add into our marriage, but we forget the simplicity of I do. And I think we forget it because it requires a lot of work. You know, like we think of our shared financial goal, we think of our, our family plan, where do we want our kids to be, like what colleges, and we think of like legacy. But I think when we think about legacy, we have to think of everything centers around I do for us. Because going into marriage, we have these feelings about one another that when we step up to say I do, I genuinely believe most people, I know there's rare cases where some people might get married for the money.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, they genuinely say I do because they really, really mean it. But oftentimes after that, they get into this place where life is just worn them down. Marriage is worn them down, work, all the things. And then we get in this place of, I don't know if I still do. I don't know if I still want to.
Mm-hmm.
Because to them, marriage is very, very hard and very, very difficult. And it just can wear you down. And so we really wanted to go back there because we know like we do have, after New Year's, we got New Year's resolutions and it is a moment for us to pause and shift, you know what I'm saying, to what, like, refocus again to what we want to do. And we want you to focus back on what you already said. You know, and I love Paul, you know, scripturally, because he often references this call that um God commissioned him to, which was to the Gentiles. Like in that, like he, you know, dealt with Jews and like other individuals. But the one thing that he did was he stayed committed to the call that he got at first. And he was adamant about sticking to that. Like, I'm going to do all these other things, but in this life, I am going to be focused on one thing. And so that's really what we want to do, is kind of take them back. So when you hear this like vision of I do, I really just want to start with, why is that important to you? Like when you think of I do, and like help, like thinking about like, we need to get back to this original thought of I do. I guess why does it stand out to you?
I think it stands out. For one, I do believe that I do is the beginning, but it's what comes before the I do. Because what are you vowing to? The vows come before you say, yes, I do. And so you have to know what you're saying I do too. And I think it's important to know that, because a lot of people, they remember the marriage, right?
Yeah.
There's so much planning that goes into actually having a wedding. You may even remember that, but somehow I think the vows get forgotten, especially when it comes to actually having to live that out, like for better or worse, for richer, for poorer, till death do us part. Like, it's easy to say I do in the beginning, but then now you have to put some action to live out that. And so I think that's often forgotten. And one of the things, one, you got to write the vision and you got to make it plain. And I believe that when you say I do, you're making the vision plain as you are declaring to your spouse in front of witnesses and God. And in Ecclesiastes 5:5, it says it's better to not make a vow than to make a vow and not keep it,
Right.
not fulfill that which you vowed. And so we got to go back to the beginning with, okay, this is the point of the shared vision. So how are we honoring that? How are we living that out? How are we cultivating that? Because in moments of stress, in moments of busyness, in times of sickness, when you have to live that out, I don't think that's in the forefront of a lot of couples' minds. And I think it's a part of not having that vision before us, of remembering that which you vowed.
Yeah, which even in like Old Testament biblical days, like one of the things they would do is when they made a vow, they would make it publicly. And they would have basically two, one for each party. You know, like one party would get, you know, like what the requirements are here, the other party would get the same thing. And they would read it aloud to like the parties, and they would do it often. I forgot how often, but they would do it often. And that was because there was so much that was tied to the vows they were making. Like if you, for example, like there's like what's called like I think it's a suzerain and vascal, um I think it's like a treaty or whatever, but it's like basically like where like a a more powerful party and a lesser power party, they would come together and make a vow. And there were certain things that the lesser party had to do in order to stay in this covenant relationship with the higher party. If they violated that vow, then there would be serious consequences. And so I think nowadays when we think of the vows we make, we don't we don't really embrace the serious consequences of it. Like in America, like it looks different, but it's still serious consequences. Um, when we make these vows and we say for richer or poorer, you know, for better or worse, like those are realities that we are going to experience in marriage. Like those are realities that like for better or for worse, are to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
Like in sickness and in health are going to be a part of it. Because one of the things that we can't change in this life is the fact that we are going to change and we are going to die. And because of the frailty of our bodies, when we make these vows, we're saying that no matter what happens to you, like I'm going to stick it out with you. And when I make that vow to you, I genuinely mean it. But once I get into the reality of it, now I have to make a choice. Like now it's not a matter of just happiness. Now it's not a matter of just like we got married and everything going great. Like sex great, conversation great, our relationships are great, in-laws are great. Most of them probably not. We have these relationships, you know what I'm saying? Everything is just so phenomenal. But once we get in a space where now we really have to evaluate what's happening, like where did we start? Where did the spark go missing? Where did we stop caring for one another? When we have to revisit those painful places, a lot of times so many couples don't want to because that's where you think of it being work. You think of it being hard and they don't want to because now I have to deal with a spouse that is angry or I have to deal with a spouse that is upset. And so when we think about the realities that come with the vows, we really have to dig deep and lean into it's not going to all be okay. My spouse is not always going to be happy. And because we live in a consumeristic society, we often tend to want to replace instead of fixing. And so now, instead of like working on my marriage, I'm diving deeper into work. Instead of working on my marriage, now I'm prioritizing the kids. Oh no, you can go work. I'm going to go and take the kids everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many different ways that we replace our spouse and we neglect the realities of the vows we made. And so when we talk about having the shared vision, there's a need for us to revisit what we committed to. Because like you said, like before we say I do, like we are committing to the realities of what comes natural in this world, which is suffering, which is pain, which is disagreement, hard times. Everybody might not be financially well off. So just the hardship of wanting to provide and not being able to provide, like that does something to a person, not just men. Yeah. But that does something to a person to where now it affects my mood and you know what I'm saying, now we have to work that like that's hard. And so we don't expect that difference when we think about us having a shared vision for marriage.
Yeah. I think maybe some people say like, oh, you didn't really know what you were signing up for. But I think those vows are very practical and like straight to the point. So when you say that I do, that's an agreement in that moment that you're making. And it's also a forming of the actual covenant because God is in the midst, right? Because he's the author of marriage. Yeah. And so I guess my question to you is, how do you, when it comes to a shared vision after the altar, what does that look like? We have this vision, we declared for better or worse, for richer or poor. How often do we revisit those vows that should be kept before us? How do we live that out so that our visions stays together? Because, you know, often in marriage, there's a drifting that happens. Is it due to not acknowledging those vows, not remembering those vows, life happening? I'm kind of looking at it as the vows are the things that actually anchor us for the journey and the ebbs and flows of marriage.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that if you could kind of speak to the shared vision after those vows are made? That's just the starting point, and we wanted to take them back to the beginning. Now what comes next?
I think it really depends on like who you are as a couple. Because I know you mentioned like how often should you revisit it, and depending on your memory, like for me, like for something to stay in my brain, like I have to look at it at least 2 or 3 times a day. If not, like my brain is going on to something else. So that's personally for me. But when you think about I do and that being like the vision you need to be able to revisit it as often as needed. Um, and you don't want to just revisit it when you're in times of trouble, because oftentimes in those moments where your marriage is troubled and you're revisiting it, you usually view it through a troubled lens, and that causes you to be more reluctant to like have those hard conversations. But when you think about just any vision or any plan, like obviously like till death do us part is the big vision. A lifelong commitment is the big vision. So if that is the case, then what you start with, like, okay, well, what type of marriage does I do look like? Like we're saying I do, but what type of marriage do we want to have? And it's almost like you it's some people call it reverse engineering, like some people call it uh reverse scaffolding. It's like break it, like what's the big goal, and then we just kind of break it down. And so this is probably the practical part of marriage. Like it ain't got to be super spiritual, super deep. What marriage do we want? When we think about what marriage we want in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, then we reverse engineer and we say, okay, well, what does that look like annually? What does that look like monthly? What does that look like weekly? What are the things we need to do that makes you feel loved in the way you see yourself in our marriage? Like practically, for example, for us, like one of the things we do is we have a monthly meeting. We talked about this last season, but one of the things we do in that monthly meeting is, we talk about the wins, we talk about improvements. And when we talk about those things, now we can start to identify, okay, I love the way that you affirmed me this month, but I really wish that you would be more uh, affectionate outside of the bedroom. And so, okay, you're telling me what it looks like for us to get to that lifelong I do is in this season, in this time, you want me to be more non-affectionate. You want me to hold your hand. You want me to open the doors. You want me to be close. You want me to cuddle up on the couch. Even when everything in me is saying like, I don't want to touch. Like I have to be in a place to say, okay, my job is to make my wife feel loved in this moment. Can I put aside how I'm feeling to do that? And so sometimes I do good. Sometimes I don't do so good. Sometimes. But at the end of the day, the goal is if I do that, we talk about it. Like, how was that? Like, did you appreciate that? Was that really what you were looking for this month? Like, was that what you meant? If I didn't do so good, okay, well, like, tell me about it. Let's go back to the drawing board. Like, those are ways that you can practically say I do, because it really starts with having a conversation. Like when we talk about having a shared vision, we have to be able to enter into that with the hopes that we can come to some type of alignment. Oftentimes what prevents us from having conversation is our connection. We might feel that we aren't close, and so when we don't feel close, we might not want to talk. And when we don't want to talk, then we drift. And when we drift, now we get into a space of complacency. And when we get into the space of complacency, now the vision isn't before us because we don't even need to revisit it. We don't need to talk about it. Like we don't need to go back to the place where we were once good, because people have told us that the first years, that's the honeymoon stage, and then it gets into the reality stage and then growth stage, and like I don't want to go through all that. So it's just like like the honeymoon stage is over, and so now you are just like stuck. So I guess practically that's what it will look like, even when you think about the need to revisit it. Um, which leads me to a follow-up question for you.
Okay.
When you think about, obviously as your husband, like I know how important relationship with God is, when you think about having a shared vision of I do, what role does Christ play in the shared vision of I do for you?
He's literally in the center of it for me. And from the very beginning, I think you knew that that was top priority, because I don't believe that you can thrive in marriage if Christ is not in the center. I've seen many marriages outside, like there are people that have dated or, you know, whatever, been together for a long time, but without Christ in the center. I mean, I think you've even seen this in your workspace when you're doing therapy. It's like you were saying, if there's no moral standard, no principle, nothing that we're operating off of or living by, then there's nothing holding us accountable basically for our actions and the things that we do. And so I think that um for me, Christ is in the center of that. And I think through the seasons that we've, even in our young 8 years of marriage, the different seasons that we've experienced in marriage, that has been the anchor that no matter what, it has kept us closer and kept us connected and anchored in him. And so I think in literally everything, everything to me when it comes to that I do. Like I said, he's the author of marriage. He designed it, he created it. And so even when there's things about you that I don't understand, I can go back to the one who created it. I can go to him and pray. I can go to him and seek understanding. I can go to him and get revelation. And even when it comes to our goals, we don't write any vision and make it plain without inviting him into that space to reveal, okay, these are our plans, but what do you have for us? What are you calling us to do? And so we wouldn't be here if it wasn't even for that. And so, yeah, I think that having Christ in the center is key for me when it comes to I do.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking is how marriage is this living, breathing thing, right?
Mhm.
And it should be growing, because if it's not growing, then it's dying. Anything that's not moving is dying. And so when I think about that, and you're talking about the reverse engineering of like, okay, we say I do, but we're promising till death do us part. So how do we work our way back based on the vision that we want to have? If you don't have a vision, then you're not aiming at nothing. And so you're going to hit every time. I mean, you're going to miss every time. But with a vision, we have clarity, we have direction, we know where we're going. And the most important thing that you mentioned is we are aligned in that. And so, yeah, you say I do, and you keep the vows in the forefront of your mind in the way that you serve your spouse and the way that you show up for them. But then also with that, now we're living this marriage out, and we're living out our I do. And what that looks like is the meetings that we have, so we can stay on the same page, so we can talk about the goals. What do we want to see in our marriage? What do we need to change? And what came to mind is that we don't have a pulse of our marriage.
Right.
And if you don't have a pulse on what's going on in your marriage, then I can see drifting being something that's easy, because we can plan for everything else. But if I don't know the heartbeat of our marriage, for us, Christ is at the center of that heartbeat, right? For us, our goals is to impact marriages. That's something that I know. For us, date night is a priority for us. Connection is everything. Friendship is at the foundation of anything that we do. So these things are foundational, but they're also a part of our everyday walking out our I do and the shared vision for our marriage. And I think through having conversations, we have determined that, but we also have to revisit it, because just because we discussed it don't mean we're always living up to that.
Right.
And that's where the monthly check-ins come in. Like, okay, how we doing?
Yeah.
How can we do better so that this aligns with the vision for our marriage? Because sometimes you can get out of line. And I think of a car, like when you need an alignment and you're driving the car, right? And your tires are out of alignment, you're going to drift and you're going different directions.
Yeah.
So we got to get readjusted, reset, and realigned on the vision that we have.
Yeah. And even thinking about, like, a lot of times in marriage, we do things in isolation. Like when we go through issues in our marriage, we do it in isolation because we don't want nobody to know what we're going through. We don't want nobody to know that we're struggling. Like, I don't want nobody to know that, like, my husband watching porn, or I don't want nobody to know, like, my, like, we financially struggling because my wife's spending too much, like, as a man. Like, so there's so many things that we choose not to talk about But even when you think about why, like some of the things that are present that makes a marriage, even if you go outside of like US um processes for marriage, like every marriage had three things in mind. Like they had permanence, they had um witnesses. What was the third one? They had permanence, witnesses, and obviously a mutual consent, like I do.
Oh yeah.
And so like all three of those were present. And so if there were witnesses present, to me, why wouldn't we, like if we're gonna publicly declare our marriage to be like, what I'm saying, a thing to like say in front of everybody we want each other, why wouldn't we go through struggles that we don't go to trusted others as well? You know what I'm saying? Like when we think about, I think we have accountability partners to help us identify those areas in which we're struggling. Like you were talking about, just if unchecked, if left unchecked, we naturally drift apart. When you think about where our fast paced society is going, especially here in America, like it's almost natural that we're just going super fast. Like in business, you gotta keep up with the times if you want to be successful. Like you can't rely on like necessarily the old ways. You have to adapt in some way. And it's requiring us to do more. It's requiring us to go faster. It's requiring us to, what I'm saying, to I remember money loves speed. So we have to be quick with decisions. And so because we want to keep up, oftentimes it's hard to slow down. If you don't slow down, you'll never catch it.
That's good.
If you don't slow down, you'll never see where you're struggling. If you don't slow down, you'll never see where your partner has been hurt, where you haven't heard them, and that's gonna cause you to say, "Man, this just isn't working." And so when we think about the need for partners, like accountability partners in our marriage, it helps point out like, hey, like give somebody like access to us to say, you're moving too fast. You need to spend some time with your wife, or like the way you talking to them kids. Not only are you damaging them, but it's also affecting your spouse.
Yeah.
Listen, I know y'all got different roles, and you go to work, and she's with the kids. Don't be condescending. Like, don't look down on her and just say that that's not work. Because if the roles were switched, you'd be irritated every day. You know what I'm saying? It's like it gives somebody access to speaking to our lives. And so, like, one of the things that I love when it comes to like traditional vows is it took something that was like, meant from the heart. Like we're saying I do to God. We're both consenting like to lifelong marriage. But we also have witnesses, is it's taking that, but it's also putting into words the emphasis behind what we're trying to get at. And if I remember right, it was in like I think it's like the book of prayer or something like that, where they put that down because we want you to know what you're committing to. We want you to know the realities of marriage. If we are going to remain one flesh, as the Bible describes it in Genesis 2, we have to know the realities of what comes with that. Oftentimes, because we never expected it, we are never prepared for it. When you don't expect hard times in your marriage, you're going to view suffering as a death sentence, when suffering is just a part of the journey.
Yep.
If you don't expect hardships in your marriage, you're going to struggle. When you prep for it, it's like, okay, this is just a different transition. And in this transition, now I know how to pivot. Because in transition is where we oftentimes make some of the most monumental decisions that are going to affect our marriage, whether you become empty nesters, whether it's a decision about whether we need to move, whether it's a decision about, okay, like our kids need blank. We're fill in the blank. Whenever we have a major transition, because it's new territory, we have to be mindful with the decisions we make. We have to slow down. We have to be mindful that when we want to choose the necessary action for our marriage, we can't make this on the fly because it's going to require us to give attention to something that we weren't prepped for. And so, in prepping for a lifelong marriage, we have to continue to revisit the game plan.
Yeah. I think that's really, really good. And I know this is a conversation that is deserving of a part 2. Like, we have to hit them with what happens beyond the altar and what that represents to move beyond the vows and the vision and what does that look like lived out in real time. And we're going to have that conversation next. But do you want to share our marriage emotion for this episode?
Yeah, let me look it up because I ain't have it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you should have just said that big dog.
You should have been prepared.
I was talking to you. Just talking to me. I wasn't there. Okay, so marriage emotion challenge. This is what we want you to do. We want you to set aside intentional time this week to discuss 3 things. What did we believe we were promising at the altar? What does that promise look like in our life today? And what do we need to realign? By doing this, you're recommitting to what it is that you're promising, what it is that you want to see in your marriage. And by doing this, it'll let you know where you are and the adjustments you need to make, because that's really what it's about. Marriage is really about a lifelong sentence of adjusting.
Not a sentence. That's not.
I'd like to say death sentence. Look,
That's what comes right after. Like, no, a sentence.
yes, you sentence.
It's a beautiful journey
Beautiful
of discovering each other again and again.
And you are
adjusting.
To death do us part.
Wow. I'm so in a hurry to get married.
I hope you're not, because you're married.
You know what I mean.
I don't.
I'm saying the way that you're saying it.
Yes. You are sentenced to death.
Oh my.
And be okay with that.
Yes. It is.
Keep this in. This will not be a blooper.
That's a part of it. All right. So thank you for tuning in.
But no, seriously, Thoughtvers, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. We hope this conversation was fruitful, because when you talked about having a shared vision, we really want you to go back to the beginning when you said I do. Because saying I do is not just about you. It's about all the people who see your marriage, and it then influences how they see marriage. So until next time.
This is we do. Till next time.
Pretty boy swag.
Okay, bye. Thank you for joining us.
Always gonna love you and always. No doubt you're my blessing. Ain't no second guessing. No one can separate.